Hi everyone, how are you all? So today in this class of verbal, we are going to discuss very important topic of verbal, which from here you can take a guess that we are going to discuss figure of speech. Why I showed that first slide? Because when I say figure of speech, there are a lot of students who think figure of speech and they relate it with part of speech, and many of them are like figure of speech, part of speech. They more or like they are similar, but they are not. When we say part of speech, we are talking about nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, these sort of topics. When we say figure of speech, the first figure of speech that everybody is aware of is simile. Doesn't matter which all figure of speeches are there, you would have heard, you would not have heard, but when I say simile, a sort of definition strikes here, example strike here, and you're like, simile to 100% suna hua hai, right? And that is why I showed you that slide. Okay, so in this class of verbal, today I'll be telling you about 10 most important figure of speeches which are asked in the exam, and I would say that they are asked very often in the exams, though we have like around 25 to 30 figure of speeches in English in verbal section, but the important ones, let's say if I say the basic ones, those figure of speeches which are somehow to be known by everyone, by every kid, every student, because you will get questions from these, be it your CUET, IPMAT, any exam you are going to appear in, you do get questions from these. So chalo, without wasting much of our time, let's get started. Now here, the very first, of course, figure of speech that I have got before you people is your simile. Now, now see what simile is. I'll teach two figure of speeches together here, like one along with the another one. So here in this slide, we will be discussing about simile and metaphor. Right, because they both are to be studied together for every student. Now, simile and metaphor are nothing but way of doing comparison. Like simile ही comparison करता है, metaphor भी comparison show करता है. Only difference goes, simile is the comparison of things, of people, of objects by using like or as. When we talk about metaphor, metaphor is also the way of comparison only, but it compares things without using like or as. Now I'll give you a very basic example. Let's say if I say, you are a star, and then if I write, you are like a star. Bacha, can I say that both of my sentences are same? Like there is no difference in the meaning. What sense is delivered by the first one is the same delivered by the second one. The only difference is in the first one, I have used like, which is very clear that I am comparing you to like star. That your qualities, your nature, lot of things resemble star. When I go for the second one, you are a star. Now, the meaning of this sentence would not be like you really are a star, but it will give you the sense that your qualities, you resemble the star-like qualities, or your aura is like star. So more or less, here also we needed like, but it was hidden. In the first one, it was clearly given. Right. So when the comparison is done of one thing with another thing by using like and as, it is simile. When the comparison is done without using like or as, it is metaphor. Now let's see more examples of this. Like, her smile is like sunshine. So which clearly says that her smile is being compared to what? To sunshine, the brightness, the beauty, the nurture, the freshness that sunshine represents. He runs as fast as lightning. So here, the person's speed is being compared to what? To lightning. As you would have seen, lightning strikes very fast, and then so is the quality of the person. He runs very fast. Similarly, as brave as lion. So his qualities are now being compared that he is so brave as lion is. He is, the king of the jungle. Similarly, as sweet as sugar, when you see somebody who's like very sweet, very sugary, when that person talks, it's like very intense, kind of enticing. So that's being like sugar-like qualities of a person. As busy as B. Multiple times you have said, oh, that person feels like he's a prime minister. He's like a prime minister. He's like a B. So you're comparing that person's quality with a B who's always busy, wandering here and there, collecting food, doing things. I hope now simile is clear to you. So between two unlike things using like and as. And similarly, we are done with the metaphor also because we did these two figure of speeches together, right? Now, personification. Now, what is personification, guys? See, its definition is also very much clear from the name itself. Person. So, personification means when you give human-like qualities to non-living objects, right? Giving human-like qualities to non-human things. Like, if I say that trees were begging for water. Now, begging is actually a quality associated with humans. Humans do that. So trees really cannot beg. So begging is quality that represents human like nature. The wind whispered through the trees. Now, whispering, कान में आगे कुछ बोलना. Trees or leaves, of course, they cannot do that. Sound, that vocal quality is given to humans, right? So this whispered talks about human-like qualities. Opportunity knocked at my door. Now, opportunity, of course, really cannot knock. Knocking is something that is done by a person who's alive. Let's say humans, right? We can go to someone else's door and we can do that knocking sound. But opportunity cannot. It's non-living, right? Now, this opportunity is being given the qualities of human. This wind is being given the qualities of human. Now, my bachas, here the trap comes that many of you mix personification with metaphor. Let me tell you, they are not similar. In personification, you will always see that abstract, non-living, non-human things are made to behave like humans, right? Let's say if I say that leaves were dancing in the air. Now, dancing again cannot be done by the leaves. It is the quality done by the humans, right? Metaphor is a way of comparison, not giving qualities of humans. Remember this. Now, moving on to the fourth one, hyperbole. Hyperbole again becomes very important, and it is again one of those figure of speeches which I believe that everybody has to remember, right? Hyperbole means doing the exaggeration in a sentence. So when you do the deliberate exaggeration in a sentence, unnecessary stretch karte ho, so that becomes the case of hyperbole, right? Example, I have told you 1,000,000 times. Now, no matter how many times you are telling that person that this you have to do, this or not to do, that cannot be 1,000,000 times. Let's say if I say, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, right? Or there's a phrase that goes by like, I am so hungry that I can eat an elephant. Now, doesn't matter how hungry you are. Think logically, can you eat an elephant? You really cannot. So when you unnecessarily exaggerate things, that becomes a case of hyperbole. Now, I'll give you a little bit of, spice in it. With hyperbole, there's one more figure of speech that goes, that's called understatement. Now, understatement is like the opposite of hyperbole. In hyperbole, you exaggerate things. In understatement, it's like a very easy way of flexing things. For an example, if I say that I have only scored 99% or percentile. No, scoring 99 is a very big deal, which is not done by everyone. So it cannot be only the sentence. It'll be like, I scored 99 percentile, right? That makes a lot of sense. Or if I say, I have just $5 million in my account. Now, guys, you just imagine $5 million is a very big amount I'm talking about, and adding just with it makes like it's a very little amount or of no value. So when you do the easy flex, you would have seen like Delhi Heights when you would have seen oh, I just live in 5 BHK. Oh, my father just have 3-4 houses. Just 3-4 houses, 10 BHK, 5 BHK is a big deal you're talking about. So when you talk about easy way of flexing things, that becomes a case of your understatement, right? Okay, so that's pretty much it. Now let's move on to the fifth one. That is your oxymoron. Now, oxymoron basically stands for two contradictory words that are placed together, right? Contradictory as in one positive or one negative, you can say. When these sort of words are placed together, they become the case of your oxymoron. Basically, they contradict each other. Like, if I say cake was awfully good. Now, here guys, awfully is your negative, good is your positive. So, when two contradictory words are placed just one after another, it becomes the case of your oxymoron. Similarly, deafening silence. Now, sweet sorrow. Sorrow can never be sweet. Living dead. Living and dead cannot be together. Deafening and silence cannot come together. So when you use two contradictory words together, it becomes a case of oxymoron. Remember it by the word moron. Like a person who talks about like moron, a person who's insane would only place positive and negative word together, right? Or else there's no need of doing that. Okay, now coming to the sixth one, guys. It says that when the intended meaning is opposite to what is said. So irony is opposite. बोलते नहीं जो कहा कहते हैं वो होता नहीं, जो होता है वो कहते नहीं. So when you go for the opposite. For an example, saying what a lovely weather during a storm. Now जब storm तूफान आ रहा होता है, so nobody can say it's a very lovely weather means a very sweet, like lovely breeze, when you know a breeze is there and a good weather, sky and everything is very good, you know, comforting, ambience is very according to a person. Storm ke time mein the ambience is not according to a person, so that's called your irony. Similarly, complimenting a messy room with wow, so tidy in here. So basically irony is a way of taunting, right? So when you do not want to say negative about directly about something, like oh, like let's say if I talk about a student who's pathetic at maths, or let's say bad with English, and I'm like, oh, you are so good with verbal, you are so good at verbal, and he knows that he is not so good at verbal. So that would be my way of using irony in a sentence. Similarly, a police officer gets arrested for shoplifting, as we of course, because as we expect law enforcement to prevent crime, not to commit it. So that would be kind of irony for us. Moving on to the seventh one, that's alliteration. Now, alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sound, or let's say same sound at the beginning of the nearby word. In short, remember it that alliteration is the repetition of sound. That's it. Right? For an example, she shell, she shells, or the she shore. Now, here, that sha, sh sound is being repeated multiple times in a sentence. Similarly, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So in short, that's here now this would be very clear to you guys from these two examples that alliteration, in alliteration we basically talk about the tongue twisters which are there. Similarly, Shally swiftly sweeps several small shirts. Now again, sh, sha sound was there, either pe sound was there, then the big brown bear barreled through the bushes. So that b sound was there. So whenever you see tongue twisters, you can easily take a guess that that would be an example of what? That would be an example of alliteration. Now, moving on to the eighth one, that is your anaphora. Quite important for you guys. So whenever you will be going for your exams, you will see that anaphora is there in lot of like options. It says repetition of word or phrase at the beginning of the successive clauses. As in it says, let's say if you have a sentence which is divided in, let's say, small 2-3 parts. So in the starting, there would be a set of phrase, a set of words, let's say clauses would be there, which would be repeated. Idhar bhi wo same hoga, that phrase, here also it will be same and here also it is going to be same. That's your anaphora. Like, it's given, stay safe, stay well, stay happy. Now, in the starting, stay is given, which is repeated and is similar. Similarly, we shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, and we shall fight in the fields. Now here, we shall fight, and we shall fight is what? Repeated everywhere. So that clause. When in the starting of a sentence, one sentence, there's a clause, there's a phrase which is repeated multiple times, it becomes a case of what? Anaphora for us. Now, similarly comes the example of your pun. It says a play of a pun is basically kind of word play when we talk about. A play on words based on multiple meanings or similar sounds. Example, a boiled egg is hard to beat. So you're talking about that beat, not that beat. Right? It's a word play. For an example, if I say, I have to take right. Now, I have to take right, which means I'm talking about a turn, that right turn I have to take. Now, am I trying to give the meaning of right, the same right here with W? Because W-R-I-T means writing, on a paper or a copy. So here it should not be right. Anyway, when a person speaks it, it sounds right. But when it's written, the word play is there, and because of which the sense is, a slight change of sense is there. So it should not be with W wala right, it should be R wala right. Similarly, the bicycle couldn't stand on its own because it was too tired. Now, when I say it was too tired, of course you will think that, okay, ma'am is talking about two tires, the round ones, TWO2. But when I'm writing, let's say, mistakenly, in place of TWO, I end up writing TOO. So that TOO would be what? Too extreme tired. Now, bicycle cannot be tired, right? That's a quality of the humans. So in place of TOO, I am supposed to write what? TOO. Hope guys, this is clear to you. Now, moving on to the 10th one, that is your euphemism. It says, using mild or indirect words instead of harsh ones. In short, I'll tell you, you would have seen in Instagram, there's a popular, type of reel that comes and, pops up between everyone. In spite of saying this, say this. In spite of using this, use this. That is nothing but euphemism. Or let's say, the very particular corporate vocabulary or the tone that you talk about. That's how actually we can learn euphemism. So in short, euphemism का मतलब है जब भी आप किसी harsh sentence जो आपके सामने लिखा होता है, so उसकी जगह आप थोड़ा formal words, थोड़ा pleasing words use करते हो, so that that statement is not sounding that harsh to everyone. Like if I say, he has died. Now, he has died, so in English, died is considered a little harsh. So in place of died, I can say, he passed away. Sounds little decent. Or if I say he kicked the bucket. Now, kick the bucket would not mean what you guys are thinking, kicking. Kick the bucket is an idiom, means to die. Right? So, you reduce its meaning and sound little softer and formal. Similarly, economically disadvantages instead of poor. Right? So, in spite of saying he is very poor or that thing is, falls in the poor category, I can say it's economically disadvantaged. So, economically, that's not good, which means it is poor. Like, if I have to say that, if I want to go to the, like, let's say if there's somebody who's very, growing old, he or she is getting white hairs, and you want to tell that person that you are growing old, abhi aapki umr ho rahi hai. So in spite of saying you're growing old, aap aisa nahi bol sakte, but try to speaking that, over the hill you can use for that, and you can say that, you must have, you have started feeling over the hill. So over the hill means you have passed certain criteria of the age. Similarly, if you want to go to the washroom, so in spite of saying, I want to go to the washroom, you can say, I want to go to the restroom, or you can say, I want to go to powder my nose. Now, powder my nose is again an idiom which represents you're going to washroom, right? Okay guys, so here were your 10 figure of speeches which I hope are now clear to you. They are very important, and make sure that you memorize them. Now, that's it for today. Thank you guys. Now, we will be meeting in the next class. Till then, take care of yourself and keep smiling. Bye-bye.